Chicago, Shitana, Wysper, Yenishne, Belagon and Schlo, Tolichini, Bashishim, Belagona, Deshich, Klashi, Doshanala. My name is Wysper. I am originally from the Four Corners area. I currently reside in Albuquerque, New Mexico, but I go home as often as I can. And the road that I drive is Highway 550, ground zero for fracking in New Mexico right now. A year ago, my sister Laura, who just spoke, and I discovered that our families have been coerced into signing contracts. They had not been informed, fully informed at all about the risks of living next to fracking development, which is why we developed the handout that you have, Dota Fracking. They were also they just weren't informed at all. And, you know, we're talking about water here. One of the things that has not been mentioned is that not only does Mother Earth, the flora and the fauna that many liberal environmentalists have mentioned that require water, but we as women require water to also create life in our own bodies. And there has been a complete disregard for the social injustices that are occurring as a consequence of this industry, particularly against Indigenous women. And we need to get really real about that. I heard someone say earlier, there's going to be impacts. There's already impacts. There are family members who are dying every week out in the Eastern Agency right now as a consequence of violence directly escalating since the industry has come into this area. There are already over 100 wells out there. If this pipeline is, well, it's already happening, but if we don't stop it, this boom will increase fivefold. What is happening to Indigenous peoples in the back-end fields, right, with the man camps, with the trafficking, with the violence against women, is going to continue to happen here. It has already arrived in these communities. There was a mother and daughter brutally murdered in their own homes just a month ago. And although the murderer was not a fracker worker or anything like that, there is a general escalation of violence rapidly happening in the Eastern Agency right now. We have a sister that's buried in the graveyard in Counselor. She died at 16 years old. The police didn't care, right? They just closed the case. Since where she was buried on the margins of that graveyard, the graveyard has increased so largely that the new section since 2007 of the graveyard is larger than the original graveyard. That's how many people are dying out there right now, and with our women, right? We need to get very real about what's going on. Not whatever violence is inflicted upon Mother Earth is inflicted upon the bodies of our women and children. We have to worry about increased rates of new and rare reproductive cancers that particularly impact women and their reproductive health, contamination of breast milk, babies born with developmental delays, jelly babies born with no bones. There are women who, when they come in contact with particular chemicals that are coming off of these wells, if they come in contact with them while they're pregnant, they are at risk of spontaneous miscarriage. These are very real issues as well. Despite VAWA being passed with the contingency that we would have some jurisdiction, criminal jurisdiction upon perpetrators against non-Native perpetrators against Native women, that is only for intimate domestic partner violence. That does not cover men who live in man camps, who are non-Natives, who are coming onto the reservation or the checkerboard area and perpetrating with impunity because they know that we have no criminal jurisdiction over them. We can thank the federal government for taking away our criminal jurisdiction over our own lands against non-Native perpetrators of violence against women, including kidnapping, murder, as well as rape. This is an issue. Our nation, Navajo Nation, already has a higher murder rate than Baltimore City. And we're going to continue to allow this industry to come in to these communities and further escalate that violence. Native women have the highest rates of sexual violence in the nation. And we are the only race of women who are disproportionately raped by a race not our own. 76% of Native women who are raped by non-Native men, and 70% of that are white men. Let's get real about the fact that the colonial legacy is intact, because colonialism cannot happen without rape. They are inherent. They are in partnership. And there is violence against Native women happening out there. There is violence against children happening out there, whether it's in the form of sexual violence, through rape, incest, trafficking, We have girls that are going missing right now as we speak. Teenage Dana girls who are going missing in the border towns, and nobody is connecting the dots to the trafficking. Right now we have, for every well that is currently being drilled that is not yet in production, but is flaring or being drilled, there's generally a small man camp around the base of every single one of those. So those are locations where communities have recognized that there is an influx of methamphetamines coming in, right? And there is also an influx of trafficking and prostitution happening there, or sex work, sex work, right? We have to get very real about the relationship. Environmental violence is about how the violence upon the land is reflected upon the bodies of the original mothers and daughters of this land. And I want to encourage everybody who is still in this room to not just be concerned about ancestral indigenous people, but the living indigenous native Dana communities that live there right now who are getting fucked. Right? The women who are being violated right now. We met a 9-year-old and a 10-year-old little girl who said, "Oh, I know what you're talking about. They spill oil all the time. We got sent home from school at Sitla Dixon because there was a spill too close to our school. We were told last week we can't drink our water because the oil makes it taste bad." Let's get very real about the fact that it is the Wild West out there. And if you have not been out there, please do so. And please speak to a Dana person and acknowledge that living indigenous communities, native Dana communities, live out there around Chaco. It is not just the flora and fauna that has to be taken into consideration, but the living indigenous communities, particularly the original mothers and daughters of this land, that we have a responsibility to protect, and we are failing them horridly at this point. The industry is also about social injustices and all types of violence that we see upon women, particularly our women. That is environmental racism, and it's happening right now. Like Sister said, nobody until Sister stood up and mentioned that there was an explosion at Live Oak today. That is the location where the pipeline is going to begin. Why are we not talking about the realities that frontline Dana communities are facing at this moment? We got to get real with ourselves. Thank you.